throwing elbows at Caitlin Clark. Brittney Griner shoving Caitlin Clark. Brittney Griner just can't help herself.
Have you ever watched a single play and immediately known it was going to start a firestorm? Not because of the score, not because it decided the game, but because everyone watching knew the conversation afterward would be bigger than basketball itself. That's exactly what happened when Caitlin Clark hit the floor after a collision involving Brittney Griner. 1 second, it looked like a routine possession. The next, Clark was down, fans were furious, and social media exploded with accusations that have followed the WNBA for more than a year. And here's the thing. This wasn't just about one screen. It wasn't just about one whistle. For a huge section of basketball fans, this moment
is playing defense. Brittney Griner lowers the shoulder and clocks her in the jaw. Like, I'm sorry, this is the shit that
became the latest chapter in a story they've been building ever since Caitlin Clark entered the league. A story about physical play, a story about officiating, and a story about whether the WNBA is doing enough to protect the player who has brought more attention to the league than anyone before her. The debate started almost immediately. Fans clipped the play from every angle they could find. Slow-motion videos flooded social media. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Some people saw a normal basketball play. Others saw something completely different. They believed Clark had once again been on the wrong end of contact.
As periods throughout the game where she just acts aggressively. Dare I say, too aggressive? Brittney
that would have been called differently if another player had been involved. And that disagreement is exactly why this moment refused to disappear. Because depending on who you ask, it was either a routine no-call, or another example of a problem that has been growing for months. The replay only added fuel to the fire. As the footage circulated online, viewers focused on Griner's positioning and movement before the contact occurred. Supporters of Clark argued that the screen was moving. Others pushed
Griner was letting Caitlin Clark know, hey, Caitlin, you ain't part of this club. You ain't part of this club. No matter what you say or what you do, just know you will never be part.
Back and said basketball is a physical sport, and that similar contact happens throughout every game. But regardless of which side people landed on, one thing was impossible to deny. Everyone was talking about it. And when a single play generates that kind of reaction, it usually means there's a much bigger story underneath. That's where things started getting interesting. Because the anger surrounding this collision wasn't really about one possession. It was about everything that came before it. Ever since arriving...
This is the shit that Conor McGregor did to Cowboy Cerrone that broke his face. Like, she drops her shoulder and then turns it in.
In the WNBA, Caitlin Clark has become one of the most discussed athletes in sports. Not just women's basketball. All of sports. Every game she plays seems to generate headlines. Every hard foul.
Brittney Griner getting away with murder last night against CC22. Oh, Lord. How is this not a moving...
becomes national conversation. Every viral moment creates another round of debate. And as her popularity has exploded, so has the scrutiny surrounding how opponents defend her. Fans have spent months arguing that Clark receives some of the toughest treatment in professional basketball. They point to physical defenders. They point to hard screens. They point to games where they feel she absorbs contact without getting calls. Whether those arguments are completely fair or not depends on who you ask. But the perception exists, and perception matters. Because once enough fans begin believing something, every future incident gets viewed through that same lens. That's exactly what happened here. The moment Clark hit the floor, thousands of viewers weren't evaluating one play. They were thinking about dozens of previous moments they've already seen, and that's why the reaction felt so intense. But this controversy didn't...
Flagrant foul, as seen by this. As seen by this one right here. Caitlin Clark literally got called. She did the same thing. She
stay focused on officiating for long. Before long, another topic resurfaced, one involving Brittney Griner herself. And suddenly an old controversy was back in the spotlight. Have you ever noticed how one single play can completely take over the sports world? One moment, one collision, one whistle that never came, and suddenly everybody has an opinion. That's exactly what happened when Caitlin Clark hit the floor after a
screen on Griner. Caitlin can't get a foul to save her life. Let's take a look, shall we? Ooh. Brittney put a little extra in that.
A controversial screen involving Brittney Griner. Within minutes, social media exploded. Fans were arguing from every angle, and the conversation became much bigger than just one possession.
Extending. And this wasn't called the moving screen? That's interesting. Caitlin Clark said a screen just like this against the Golden State Valkyries, and they nearly wanted to throw her out the game.
Because for a growing number of people watching the WNBA, this wasn't about a single missed call. They believe it's part of a much larger story, and that's where things get interesting. The play itself happened fast. Clark was moving through traffic, trying to stay attached defensively, when she ran into a screen set by Griner. Contact followed. Clark went down. The officials let play continue. No whistle, no review, no stoppage. Just basketball moving on as if nothing unusual had happened. But fans weren't ready to move on. Within moments, clips of the play were spreading everywhere. Slow-motion replays were being posted from every angle imaginable. Some viewers looked at it and saw a normal basketball play.
Turned her shoulder, except got someone in the chest on the screen, and it was given as a flagrant foul. If, you might say, oh, it's the same difference with Brittney Griner, so it should be a flagrant one. First of all, it was a no call.
Others saw something completely different. To them, it looked like the kind of screen that should have resulted in an offensive. The reason that old controversy came roaring back is because fans already had questions about the relationship between Brittney Griner and Caitlin Clark long before this latest collision ever happened. Back in 2025, a moment involving Griner after fouling out of a game sparked days of discussion online. Video clips spread everywhere. People slowed them down.
But I think the referees are scared of Debo Griner. Big old Britt Griner. The refs are scared of her, but also the refs understand the assignment. No, you let Caitlin.
People replayed them. People tried to figure out exactly what had been said. Within hours, social media had turned the moment into one of the biggest talking points in the league. Griner later publicly denied some of the claims being made and explained that her frustration was directed at the officiating. But by that point, the internet had already done what it does best. Everyone had formed an opinion, and once fans start connecting different incidents together, every future interaction gets magnified. That's exactly what happened after the latest collision. Suddenly, people weren't discussing one play anymore. They were discussing an entire timeline. The screen, the hard
Clark, and just shoves her. And then got called for a foul. So Caitlin's just trying to, how exactly is a foul on Caitlin Clark? How exactly is that a foul on Caitlin Clark? Response is that we're younger.
Fouls, the missed calls, the viral clips. Everything became part of one larger conversation. Whether that's fair or not is up for debate, but it explains why emotions were running so high. And while fans argued about Griner's intentions, another question started gaining momentum. A question that had nothing to do with Griner at all. Instead, it focused directly on the officials. Because if the screen really was illegal, how was it missed? That's the question that kept appearing over and over again. The replay wasn't hidden. The official wasn't blocked. The contact happened in plain sight. So naturally, people wanted answers. And this is where the officiating discussion became impossible to ignore. For months, Clark supporters have argued that she doesn't receive the same whistle as some of the league's biggest stars. Again, that's an opinion, not a fact. But it's an opinion shared by a lot of people. Whenever Clark takes contact and no foul is called, social media fills with side-by-side
Class asked, let's not be crazy here. Freedom movement rules, you can't block a cutter, which is what she tried to do. Again, exactly what she tried to do. It doesn't matter. If Brittney Griner walks into Caitlin Clark, yes, she bumped the cutter. That is a foul on Caitlin Clark.
Clips comparing similar plays from around the league. Fans analyze every angle, every frame, every whistle, every non-whistle. The debate has become so intense that even neutral basketball fans have started paying attention. Because regardless of which side you're on, one thing is obvious. The officiating conversation isn't going away. And when this latest play happened, it poured gasoline on an already burning fire. The timing couldn't have been worse for the league, especially because the WNBA has publicly acknowledged that officiating is an area they want to improve. League officials have discussed consistency. Coaches have discussed consistency. Players have discussed consistency. Everyone agrees that getting calls right matters. The disagreement begins when people start deciding which calls were actually wrong. That's where things get messy, because basketball isn't played in slow motion. Officials have fractions of a second to make decisions. Fans have unlimited time to watch replays, and those two realities don't always lead to the same conclusion. Still, the frustration continued growing, because while everyone debated the contact, Clark kept doing the one thing she's done throughout her entire career. She kept producing, she kept making shots, she kept creating offense, she kept finding ways to impact games. That's what makes this entire discussion so fascinating. Even in games where fans complain about officiating, Clark continues putting up numbers that demand attention. Defenses load up against her. Opponents pick her up far from the basket. She faces pressure that few guards in basketball have ever experienced, and somehow she still finds ways to deliver. That's why many fans view her as more than just a talented rookie or young star. To them, she's become the face of a new era. An era where women's basketball commands national attention on a nightly basis. And whether people love her or can't stand hearing about her, nobody can deny her impact. Arena attendance has increased. Television audiences have increased. Media coverage has increased. Casual sports fans who never watched the WNBA before suddenly know player names, team standings, and game schedules. That's not something that happens by accident. That's the result of a player capturing the imagination of an audience. And whenever a player reaches that level of influence, every controversy becomes bigger. Every hard foul becomes a headline. Every disagreement becomes a national debate. Every missed whistle becomes a talking point. Which brings us back to the question at the center of all this. Was this simply basketball, or was it another example of something larger? The answer depends entirely on who you ask. Some fans believe the outrage has been overblown. They argue that physical play has always been part of professional basketball. They belie.